On today's show, former Brookside actress Sue Jenkins talks about the success story behind her long marriage.
It's wanting to make it work and feeling that it's precious enough to make it stand the test of time.
Plus the lovely Debbie McGee on her first impressions of husband-to-be Paul Daniels.
Oh, God, I hate magicians.
It's a funny thing that sometimes I think you meet the person that you're going to be with and you don't expect to. And for me it was my first job actually from drama school, and I was playing Pinocchio in a touring company, the kind of company where you put the set up and you do everything yourself really, no glamour attached at all. And I met David and he was actually an actor in the show, playing Mr. Fox. And when I first met him, I thought that he was very big-headed and thought a lot of himself, and actually I didn't really pay much attention to him because he seemed so much older than me. As the years have gone by, I have to say the age difference has got bigger and bigger because he admits his age and I never admit mine. So what started off as a smaller age gap has become huge over the years. Anyway, I knew I started to like him because every time there was a scene where Mr. Fox chases Pinocchio, I used to always look forward to the bit where he caught Pinocchio. And then, he'd put his arms around me, and that I kind of started to really like that scene. So we toured for 3 months, and then our relationship developed, and very slowly. And he always says that I was the little blonde that he felt he had to take care of, and he always says he's still doing that actually. I don't believe it. Did you know I was going to?
No. Great. I was just looking in there thinking I'm never going to get into that.
Come on, you deserve something.
Oh, I don't. Oh. How are you doing? Fancy coffee?
I'm fine. Actually, it was funny the way we got engaged. He couldn't decide what to buy me for a birthday, and we just happened to be in Birmingham outside of a jeweller's, and so we were looking at rings, and that's when he said, well, should I buy you an engagement ring? And I said, well, only if you're asking me to marry you. And so he said, I am. So he bought me an engagement ring, and then eventually we got married. I think the strange thing is, because I always wanted to be an actress from the age of 5, the make-believe was always playing other characters. So as far as my own wedding was concerned, I didn't particularly want any big Barbie doll wedding. I actually wanted a very simple affair, even from when I was small, I think. And that actually did carry through to my actual wedding. I didn't want a huge, big, white meringue dress. My mum thought I was going to turn up in white denim because, of course, that was the time where denim was the uniform. I mean, it still is to a certain extent, but she was so surprised when I did actually arrive in satin and lace. But it was still a very, it was my choice of dress, and it wasn't down to the floor, it was actually calf length, and I did my own hair and makeup, I didn't have the whole entourage that happens now, and I wanted it to be just real. I've been to weddings where people have said what everybody else says, and then I've seen 10 years later them break all of those vows. We actually went out of a room weeks, maybe months before the wedding, and I wrote down what I'd like to say to David, and he wrote down what he'd like to say to me, and actually, ironically, when we got back into the room, they were pretty much similar, things like respecting each other's independence and trying very hard to feel in the future what we feel today, and not these random promises that perhaps are said too easily, really. That's one of the things that made it very, very special. And we both had our mums and dads there, which was terrific. And my mum cried, although I'd made a promise not to. But now I'm a mum of 3. I don't know how I could have had the audacity to do that, because I just cry if one of them does a speech at school, so, but it was a great day. So on May the 28th, 1978, when I was only 10, you understand, we were married on the sunniest day, just the hottest day, in this most beautiful little chapel on a hill, with just greenery and countryside and hills and sheep all around. I think the joy of David and I both being actors is that we both realise that over the years you have to play love scenes, and to be honest, that's really helpful, because if he was in any other profession, he may think that, you know, there's more to it in those scenes. But as we all know, when you're actually doing a love scene, whether it's on stage or in front of the cameras in a TV studio or on film or whatever, it's so clinical, it's so cold and clinical, really. It's what happens in the wings that's more to be worried about. But no, I think, you know, we've got through all those kind of minor jealousies that might be there in the early days, I think. But now it's so funny. I mean, we've just done a radio drama together where we were playing husband and wife, but my character was having an affair constantly with somebody else. So, you know, I think when you're as old and wise as we are, no, David is, I'm not old at all, you kind of just accept that, you know, that's par for the course, really. And anyway, now you're just so glad to get love scenes. It's a weird thing that when it's just the two of you, you think that you're the most important things until you have children, and then you really go on to the bottom of the list voluntarily. And we've been blessed with 3 children who are now teenagers, and we've got Emily, who's 20, and she's at university. She's studying theatre studies, surprise, surprise. Then we've got Richard, who people probably will know, Richard Fleischman from, he went in as Craig in Coronation Street when he was 13, but music has always been his great love, and he has signed with Universal, and is songwriting at the moment, and you know, working on his album. We've got Rosie, who's 14 going on 42, and she'll kill me for this, but she is. And I think it's the youngest of 3 syndrome. You know, she wants to do everything that the others are doing, and she will. She wants to follow in the footsteps, and it must be in the genes, I guess. And it's worrying in one way, but it's flattering in another, because the one thing it means is that they've obviously had a nice life so far, and thought it's given us a good life. I think the biggest, maybe not secret, but the biggest piece of advice I would give anybody, if they were interested, would be to say that it's wanting to make the effort to make it work, and feeling that it's precious enough to make it stand the test of time, and I think that's it. I don't think there's any other magical ingredient apart from caring so much about that other person that it's much better to be in each other's lives than to not be, and to know that actually they will always be there for you, as we will be, you know, as best friends as well as everything else. And I think it's that effort that's the important. That's a very long-winded way of saying it's really knowing that the effort is worthwhile.
Still to come, celebrity florist McQueen's on what makes a celebrity wedding blossom. Plus, Debbie McGee talks about what attracted her to the millionaire Paul Daniels.
Paul's retort was, you know, don't say that, you know, because I'm Superman, and ripped all his clothes off and stood on the chair. Of course, it was hysterical, and I thought, oh, well, at least he's funny.
I'm Callie Ellis, and I run McQueen's Flowers. It's a business that started 16 years ago, and before then I worked for a French bank in the city. I woke up one morning, however, having had the most amazing dream, and literally within 3 months I had my own shop. McQueen's has earned a reputation for being a contemporary florist. People come to us because they are seeking something contemporary, by which I mean something clean and crisp and structured and very designed. We're not your typical florist. I hate the word arrangement. We don't do flower arrangements. What we do is flower installations. They're pieces, they're works of art. And McQueen's is considered a high-end florist. We have several celebrity clients, royalty, whose names I can't mention unfortunately, and some very affluent institutions. We started getting interest from celebrity world when Vanity Fair approached us to do their Oscar party in Los Angeles. We've been doing that now for, this will be our 12th year. We've also done a few celebrity weddings, a couple of which, Graydon Carter, obviously, who's the editor of Vanity Fair, was one of them when we did his wedding a couple of years ago in Connecticut. We also do some very affluent, aristocratic weddings, occasionally where money is no object, which is great for us and also great for them. Our most opulent wedding was one that we did in the Dorchester a couple of years ago for a Jewish client of ours, where really money was no object. And they, again, didn't have arrangements as such. They had huge installations, plaques of flowers hanging from the ceilings, great big plateaus of flowers, works of art really. That was the brief. They wanted hanging art on the walls rather than floral arrangements. And it did go into several zeros at the end. Our celebrity client is endless, really. We have people like Gwyneth Paltrow, Nicole Kidman. We recently did George Michael's birthday party. We have people like Naomi Campbell who order from us regularly, to mention but a few. McQueen's is very well known in the industry, and we have lots of contacts with production companies, with celebrities, not personally but through their PAs, etc. Our name, I don't know really how they find us, but they do. We have a fabulous website. All of our business comes word of mouth. We never advertise, so we're just out there really. I'm very wary with celebrities is that they should be very demanding and command the best product you can possibly give them. So I'm always striving to always get the best quality flower and the best design possible for them. 2-3 years ago we did the wedding for Gary Kemp from Spandau Ballet. His wedding was in the country and the style was very much a country style, very understated, incredibly elegant. The table centres were quite tall, mind you, and the colours were divine. Again, seasonal flowers were used at the time. It was all purples and soft pinks, muted pinks and sort of antique roses. It was divine. If I could do any celebrity's wedding, it would have to be Kate Moss. She's stylish, she's elegant, she's beautiful. And I think her tastes are quite simple, judging by the way she dresses. It's very much what we're about as well. It's exactly the qualities that I think that we could give back to her and arrange the most amazing wedding for her.
I don't think I ever really thought about my wedding when I was little. I was much more interested in going into show business and wearing lovely clothes. So always wanted to dress up and was very much a career and quite an ambitious person. So I never really thought about getting married, but I suppose in the back of my head I would have always wanted a big white wedding. I was a ballet dancer. I auditioned for a company that put on lots of light entertainment summer shows and got put in with a group of girls and said, well, you've all been chosen to work with the Paul Daniels show. Well, Paul had become famous while I'd been living in Iran, so I had no idea who he was or what he did. So I went home and I rang all my friends and said, I've got this job for 4.5 months in Great Yarmouth with a guy called Paul Daniels. And they said, oh, he's a magician. I went, oh, God, I hate magicians. And there was about a 6-week gap before I started rehearsals. And during that time, I was again at a friend's house, and their children rang in and said, the guy you're working with is on TV now. So I ran in to look, and it was Terry Wogan hosting a show called Blankety Blank, which was a quiz show. And Paul was playing a joke on Terry. He'd put red underpants on the outside of his trousers, and he had a Superman t-shirt on under his jacket and shirt under his shirt as well. And Terry said something, and Paul's retort was, you know, don't say that, you know, because I'm Superman, and ripped all his clothes off and stood on the chair. Of course, it was hysterical, and I thought, oh, well, at least he's funny, so I might survive my 4.5 months. So when I started rehearsing for this Paul Daniels show, it was going to be in Great Yarmouth, but we rehearsed in London in an old church hall. And the dancers started rehearsing, and we rehearsed for about 3 or 4 days before Paul came in. So I'm actually a punctual person, so it's very boring. So I got there early and the church wasn't open, so I was sitting on the wall outside when up walked Paul. And so I did know it was him because I'd seen him on Blankety Blank dressed as Superman. But that was our first meeting, waiting. We were both early because he's punctual too. And we actually, that very first meeting, I really liked him, and we both ended up laughing because I'm quite a joker and so is he. So he said something to me and I made quite a naughty comment back and made him laugh, and he's always said afterwards, once she'd said that to me, and I am not going to say what it was, that he said, I'm going to ask this girl out. So that was the beginning. Paul and I got sort of friendlier and friendlier, but he thought I was far too young for him. And he kept saying, he'd take me out for dinner or to an opening night or something, but there was no kind of heavy relationship. And he'd just say, oh, you're far too young, go and meet somebody your own age. And he had hundreds. If you read his autobiography, you'll know that's true. He had hundreds of girlfriends before and during that time, because we were just really great friends. And then it kind of developed over the years of me working on the TV shows. The relationship grew. And there was a defining moment where I knew the relationship then became more serious, shall we say. I'd bought my own flat and he wanted to help me buy it, and I'm very independent and I wouldn't let him help me. And he came round to the flat when I moved in, and I think that's when he sort of realised I was doing this panto without him, that perhaps hey, I'm independent and I didn't need him and I wasn't after his money. Maybe, I don't know, but that's what I think. That then there was a change in him, and it became more serious. When he proposed, we'd seriously been sort of very committed to each other for about 2 or 3 years, I'd say. And then we bought this lovely house, which we moved into, and a few months after that, on a beautiful summer's day, we had like a swinging sofa on the patio. Paul opened a bottle of pink champagne and got down on his one knee, I hate me for telling you, and proposed. And he said, I'm not very tall, I'm not very good looking, I'm not very tall, I'm not very good looking, but I'll promise you one thing, it will never be boring. And that was his proposal. Our wedding day really was as perfect, I think, as I could have ever asked for. We were really lucky. It was in early April, but the weather was fantastic. And, Paul had done a lot of the organising. He knew what I wanted, and although we did it together, he really kind of took over quite a bit. So we had lots of things. I stayed in a hotel with my bridesmaids and my parents the night before. I had my makeup girl from the BBC did my makeup and hair. My dress I had designed by the dress designer at the BBC who was doing my evening dresses for the Paul Daniels Magic Show, but a lot of the dress came from me. We got married in the spring, so it was made of Duchess satin, which is quite heavy because I thought I might be cold. And I'd watched my sister-in-law get married the previous October, who froze to death. So I thought, I'm not going to let that happen to me. We got married at the Beaconsfield Registry Office in Buckinghamshire, and it has a huge green outside, and it's large, so we could fit 150 people in. So we dressed it up like a church with flowers and everything, and there was a balcony, so we went outside afterwards like royalty, going, So that was nice, because there were a lot of people, fans, that had found out that were waiting outside. And by then we were living in this beautiful house together that before us had belonged to Roger Moore. It had a lovely big garden. So we had a huge marquee in the garden, and we had 2 huge scrolls. One was the seating table plan, and the other one was, it's so showbiz, was credits. And so we'd done who'd done the flowers, you know, who was the catering, blah, blah, blah. And at the bottom, because we've both got a bit of a sense of humour, we'd put Weather by Robert Powell, who is the actor who's a great friend who was at the wedding. So that was our little bit of, you know, bit of humour. At our wedding, our show business guests were Adam Faith, who sadly is no longer with us, and his lovely wife, Jackie. Barbara Windsor. Now, I'd love to say something about Barbara, because I've known Barbara for years. And Barbara, at my wedding, someone passed this story on to me, was the paparazzi photographers were outside the registry office, and Barbara covered her face and said, "No, this is Debbie's day, don't take pictures of me." And I just think that really shows what a lovely person she is. I mean, I know that she is because I know her well, but I really have never ever forgotten that. And I know that we both have a lot of respect for each other, so I thought that was wonderful. We had, you know, not all show business friends. We've got lots of friends who aren't in show business, so we had a real mixture of friends, lots that had flown in from all around the world, you know, magician friends from all over Europe and America and whatever. And then to the end of the evening, we had this wonderful fireworks display to music, which was to Zadok the Priest, the coronation music by Handel. And we chose that because Paul's father's Christian name was Handel. And it was just, you know, a magical end to the evening. Paul and I have a great life together. I think because we both have a lot of the same sort of interests. We both love going to the theatre, we love movies. We're similar sort of people that although we're in showbiz and we love the glamour, we're very down to earth, we're very close to our families. Not all our friends are from show business. We're not the sort of people to kind of, you know, get everybody to do everything for us. We're very hands-on. You know, I go and do my own shopping and things like that. So I think because we're similar sort of people like that, that's what works for us. And we've both got a great sense of humour.
Next time, soap legend Jane Rossington on relationships in and out of the Crossroads Motel.
I started off with my first marriage where I don't even remember getting married, so I think it must have been off-screen. Suddenly, the chap I married to turns out to be a bigamist.
Plus, celebrity couple Neil and Christine Hamilton on the ups and downs of their marriage.
It was a great shock to me when Christine told us we were getting married.
It wasn't at all. You're quite wrong. It wasn't a shock at all. I'll tell you what happened.
It was a shock to the system when I realised it wasn't just talk.
All that and more on the next Celebrity Brides Unveiled.